Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chad Erickson. I'm the Vice President of Strategy at MyAdvice. And with me today is Connon Thompson. He is the Director of Practice Financing at the LenDR Group Consulting company. And a little bit about Connon. My gosh, his background is phenomenal. He's got 20 plus years of experience in the banking world. More importantly, he's got 10 plus years now of being um, really a consultant and in the practice finance side. And so he understands all that happens in the practices. He focuses on healthcare. He knows what it takes to do real estate deals, to help with growth and expansion, equipment, all the debt refinance, working capital. And we'll talk about that for a few minutes in our Vodcast today. So again, we appreciate you being here. And Connon, thanks for joining us. And Connon, maybe if you want to add a little bit to your background and tell us a little bit about the company, a little background and kind of your mission.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. So I started in banking in 1997 with MBNA. That was a credit card institution owned by Alfred Lerner, owner of the Browns there for a while, he and his son Randy. When the housing market crash started kind of creeping up on banking institutions, MBNA tried to diversify a little bit, and they got into mortgage referrals, that kind of business, and they purchased a little practice finance organization. I believe that it was Sky Practice Finance Solutions at that time, which became MBNA Practice Solutions. And of course, when MBNA took over Bank of America Practice Solutions. Had a number of friends who had always wanted to be in sales, and that they joined that organization. And actually, I owe them a big debt of gratitude. Brandy Keck, Jeremy Keck, some folks, some of those folks, and they brought me on to Bank of America Practice Solutions. I believe it was late 2011. Started doing inside sales there. That's the typical progression at a bank of that nature. You start out at inside sales. Got a promotion there to a BDO, kind of a regional manager role in that shop. Moved to US Bank for 4 years or 5 years rather, and finished up at Citizens Bank. Some big changes at Bank of America Practice Solutions forced a number of us out. Then I had the Citizens Bank Practice Finance organization close their shop. And I'd been talking to Jason at LenDR Group Consulting for a number of months about coming on. Probably 8 or 9 months. Citizens Bank, kind of out of the blue, closed their program. And that was the second time that I've been involved in that sort of process in a financial institution. And quite frankly, I was sick of it and I was ready to bet on myself. Fortunate enough to join LenDR Group Consulting, I want to say in December of 2021. So it's been about 2.5 years now. And at this point, I'm Director of Practice Finance Consulting. We're growing. We're bringing some people on, Michael Morris and Brian Duncan most recently. And things are going well, and I couldn't be happier. As far as a little background with LenDR Group Consulting, LenDR Group Consulting was started by Jason Householder and Victor Holloway as a solution to problems that myself and Jason and others like us, regional sales managers at these banks, were running into on a regular basis. Every bank has a soft spot in their credit policy. And when you have really good people coming in the door that you really believe in, and as a salesperson, that's what you really want to do. You want to develop personal relationships with the people that you're working with. That's what gains trust. That's what drives business. That's what gets people to commit to you to do business for them. And when your organization falls short, every bank has deals where their regional sales managers are just banging their head on their desk, like, why didn't we do this deal? Why didn't we do this deal? Jason and Victor wanted to help those people. So our job here is really to find solutions for doctors, whether they are having difficulty finding financing or not. I would say probably 70% of the folks that we work with fall outside of the typical credit box. Those scenarios could be the client has an issue, or maybe it's the practice that they're looking to buy has an issue, or whatever their plan is, for one reason or another, just doesn't fall inside of the typical credit box. The other 30%, I would say, it's no secret. Nobody likes talking to banks, especially if you're a physician or a dentist or a veterinarian. That is not something that you want to do on a daily basis. Time is money. Some people use my services as a time value of money proposition. If they're going to spend 40 to 60 hours of their time working on credit apps and talking to 7, 8 different banks. They're losing a lot of money that they could be producing. Others have scenarios where maybe it's a first-time buyer for a DSO or an MSO or a VSO, and they have no idea what to do, where to go, where to start the process. And of course, we can help them in that situation, not just on the practice finance side, but also on the business consulting side. So there are 2 sides to our business. Probably something that I have to go ahead and clarify. So LenDR Group Consulting is a full-service healthcare business consulting firm. We consult the owners of privately held dental, veterinary, and medical practices. In addition to that, of course, we also have the practice finance consulting side. The business consulting side isn't just consulting, bookkeeping, full accounting services. We have licensed valuators, demographic reports, projections, cost analysis, so on and so forth. So very full service on that side. That's our LenDR Group story.
Yeah, that's a ton. My gosh, when you think about this, for a lot of practice owners, they're probably like, wow, how have I never heard of you before? I think sometimes they get into their own worlds and they know that they're just, they're working with, you mentioned, Citizens Bank and Bank of America, and these are 2 groups who, depending on how the market goes, they're either lending, a lot, or they're tightening things up and they're saying no a lot, right? And so that's one of the challenges in the banking space, and you do a lot more than that. What phenomenal. What are some of the other challenges that you're finding that practices are facing today with traditional lending, or lending, groups, financing groups that only focus on one area, where it's like maybe they only focus on real estate or they only focus on equipment. And I think you offer some advantages, but what are some of those challenges you hear on a regular basis?
Well, the challenges that my clients face are no different than the challenges that I faced in my employment before coming on here. They're not doing it anymore, right? So with a bank that's staying in the marketplace, their targets are going to change based on the market. For example, I went 2+ years without having a single LOI declined. And I really sell my LOIs hard to my clients. And what I mean by that is, because of the tenure that I've had in this business, and if you worked at Bank of America between 2005 and 2015, 80% of the practice finance specialists in the country by no more than 1 degree of Kevin Bacon. I mean, it is that small of a world. But what happens is, the banks that I was working for previously, they went in a different direction or they closed down their programs. Well, you can imagine if you are someone out there in the lender sphere that's seeking financing, we have a lot of situations where a field rep, a regional sales manager, whomever in practice finance, whatever that title may be, will say, yes, we'll do that deal. If something happens in the market, that may have been a situation in which that bank may have leaned into that deal a little bit. Let's say that the client's cash flow in that deal isn't exceptionally strong, but it meets minimum standard requirements. Maybe their liquidity is a little bit low. Maybe they have limited time license, whatever the case may be. That could be a decision that bank makes 2 weeks ago and leans into that deal. And now, based on what's going on, that deal's not happening now. That SVB collapse, had my first 3 LOIs declined right after that SVB collapse. Had it been 2 weeks prior, all 3 of those deals probably would have got done. And so things move so rapidly with these changing policies and the appetite of these banks. Zion's Bank has chosen to get out of the practice finance program market. We did a lot of business with them. CF Bank, a small bank in Columbus that had a national program at the beginning of the year, they decided to stop doing, practice finance loans. So what's interesting is every void is going to get filled eventually. So now we are finding, just based on our research, because that's our job, who's looking to push into the space that they left, who's willing to expand their credit policies a little bit to pick up that extra business, who's willing to create a program to try to get into that business. So, the other aspect of it is, I would never walk into a dental office and say, I don't really like the treatment program that you've put together for this client, because it is not my lane. And practice finance is not the lane of most doctors. I think I have worked with 2 dentists in my lifetime. And of course, I work with veterinarians and medical professionals as well. I worked with 2 dentists in my lifetime that I know for a fact had graduated dental school with a degree in dentistry, right? A doctorate in dentistry, and also a master's in business. Very bright. They understood finance very well. And I still manage the processes for them because they didn't want to do it. But for your average person, there's no reason to think that I would be a master in the dental or the vet or the medical lane as it pertains to production. And there's no reason to think that the average doctor has a really good grasp on financing. And so when you look at these changing policies and the acumen of most doctors when it comes to financing, we provide them with a ton of guidance.
And I think that's, gosh, Connon, I think you really hit the nail on the head, right? Is hey, you can go, and Zions Bank is in my backyard, right? I'm here in Utah.
Yeah.
It's a Utah company, and I know that they've been pulling back, right, on a lot of their asset lending.
Mm-hmm.
They got downgraded a little bit, just as an example, right? So if you're working directly with the bank, you're like, well, what do I do next? As opposed to if they work with you or a member of your team, well, you're working with a trusted advisor, someone who's been around the block, who actually is an expert in this. And so it's like, why would you do that as opposed to what I call, back up? It's a little bit of get out of your own way, right? I don't know dentistry.
That's
so
right.
why would I go to my dentist, like you said, and say, no, I don't think that's the right thing, doc. I think we should be doing this. I read this on Google last night, right?
Yep.
And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
So similar issues. Which makes a lot of sense. Practices today, have so many different needs depending on whether they're in a startup mode. The life cycle is different. Talk about that for a minute and how you address all the different aspects of the life cycle of a practice.
Well, just let me say in full disclosure, from a business consulting side, there are a lot of things that they do to address that life cycle, including starting up and the middle life cycle all the way through retirement, things of that nature. I am not a business consultant, right? I am a practice finance guy. But in regards to the life cycle of a practice, I think the one thing that I see that has to be addressed most often is someone who goes into a transaction, whether that be a startup or whether that be an acquisition, and they don't think about their long-term plans. So one of the things that we always try to do is, if you are going to go out and we're going to help you with a startup loan, well, for example, there's some banks out there that have very limited exposure limits. Okay, so let's say that you are a specialist like an orthodontist or something of that nature, and this bank has a $1.5 million credit exposure limit. A pediatric or an orthodontic acquisition, even for a first-time buyer, those are going to be a higher dollar value than your typical general dentistry office. So let's say they do an acquisition for 1.3 million, they get $100,000 in working capital, and they're at 1.4. The issue that we ran into, and the issue that I ran into when I worked for a bank of that nature, is I would lose business because I would be honest with the doctor and tell them that if they have plans for expansion or a second acquisition or something like that, we're probably at a ceiling for them. I'm sure that, I didn't share that a lot with my bosses at the time, but I just have a really hard time with someone that may be out there in the banking world. And listen, I'm not generally banging on practice finance bankers, because most of them are very good. But if your doctor comes to you and they express to you that they have long-term plans to expand, they want to acquire second practice in a couple of years or something of that nature, and you're within $100,000 of their exposure limit with you, and you don't have a conversation about that, that brings me pause, right? So we deal with that a lot. When someone comes to us and we secure them financing for a startup or an acquisition, for example, before we move on and make choices on what bank we're going to move forward with, we need to talk about a few things. How is their service? How did they perform during PPP? I think people are crazy if they don't think that something like this COVID fiasco, it's going to happen again. There were a lot of banks out there that managed it really, really well. There were a lot of banks out there that managed it very, very poorly, and they left a lot of owners in a lurch wondering what they were going to do, and they couldn't get their PPP loans, so on and so forth. Nobody talks about service. Everybody just wants to get that loan closed. We talk about their long-term plans and what their exposure limits look like. If you have to leave this bank, what does it mean when you have a prepay? What's in your loan docs that may affect your ability to expand or work out your long-term plans in the future? So it's very important that not just that we get the financing for folks, but we're talking about their long-term plans. We're putting them in a position where they can be successful. We are referring them to people that are healthcare specific. We have a lot of partners in the industry, like your organization, when it comes to marketing and web design. Doctors can waste a ton of time calling around the countryside trying to find partners to get them what they need. And we always like to try to add value, like your organization does as well. So it can't ever just be about the transaction that is in front of us today. We want to get the short-term needs met, but at the end of the day, if you have to leave somewhere, you have to pay a 3% prepayment penalty. Those things can be avoided if you take the time to work with and partner up with the right organizations.
Yeah, that's great advice. And thank you. And, the reason we want you on here today is you are part of our valued, offering and part of our family, because we recognize it's maybe tangential to what we do, but we're all about the success of the practices. And if we can bring in a partner that can lend some advice that, like, my gosh, I didn't know that this company existed and this could really help me. That's what we want to do. And in that spirit, sometimes switching banks or switching to a different, practice lending group might seem daunting. You talked about earlier, oh my gosh, do I need to, how long is it going to take me to go through all my financials and put all this information together? So maybe, take just a minute or two and address sort of that process. And then probably the best way to contact you as well.
Okay, so that process a little bit before I get to contact. So the nice thing about our service is we attempt to get our clients to delegate everything that they possibly can to us. If someone wants to come to me and they say, look, I'm extremely busy, I need to do X, Y, and Z, we're, whatever the process is, and we're switching banks, my response is, do you have an office or a business manager that can manage these communications for you so you can get back to producing? All right. Oftentimes that's a yes. Who's your attorney? I can collect your legal entity documents that way. Who's your CPA? I can collect your financial statements that way, and tax returns, maybe the office business manager. So what we try to do is we try to take everything that we can off of our clients' shoulders. Again, a time value of money proposition, but not a lot of people are offering that. They have a lot going on. And look, I completely get it. But I think that more and more there are less and less folks out there that are willing to go the extra mile. We will even go as far as saying, Doc, when can you talk? Well, I've only got lunch. All right, we'll say, look, if you've got a half hour and you're going to be on lunch, I will have the applications in front of me. You can eat in my ear, but we have to get this information and we need to get it quickly so we can move this around. We'll fill out applications for folks. We will get on the phone with their office or business manager. We will fill out their practice profiles. So a lot of the stress, as you can imagine, with collecting all of this documentation and filling out forms and things of this nature, they don't need to worry about that with our process. We will offer to fill out their applications for them. We'll offer to collect whatever it is that we can. And of course, once we have the information, then they don't need to worry about their cash flow or what their revenue looks like. We're going to have all of that information. We will run cash flows. We will do write-ups, all of that in advance before sending it out to our lending partners. Now, one thing that I should mention is when you work for a bank, you are beholden to your credit policy. You can't go outside of that. Very rarely can you get an exception. If you are looking for an opportunity to have the best chance of approval, then why not have 7 or 8 or 9 different banks look at a deal at one time without pulling your credit? We have those connections. The amount of time that it would take a doctor to delve that deeply into the finance world is absolutely astronomical, and they couldn't get their production work done on a daily basis. But I'm not beholden to any credit policy. So as people are having conversations with me and telling me what their concerns and issues are, what their goals are, I've got 4, 5, 6 different banks bouncing around in my head. Like, I can take it here. I can take it here. They've done deals for like that for us in the past. So we can get it out there and hopefully get a number of options for folks. So just wanted to circle back and kind of throw that in there. As far as getting in contact
That's
with
awesome.
LenDR Group, yeah, thank you. As far as getting in contact with LenDR Group Consulting, I can be reached at 234-320-8207. That's my cell phone. My email address is Connon, CONNON at LDRGC, Larry, David, Roger, Gary, Cat.com, just short for LenDR Group, little play on words there. And also LenDR Group Consulting can be searched on Google or whatever internet search site. And we've got a very nice website. There's some podcasts on there with our CEO. There's a number of kind of little one pages and drop downs that give a synopsis of what we do. And I believe some feedback from some clients that we've worked with in the past as well. I would also just kind of close and adding this. If anybody is kind of doubtful on whether or not this is a process that would be good for them, I think that it's always really brave of someone to say, hey, look, if you want some referrals or some people to talk to, I'm happy to get you some referrals. We've worked with a ton of really great people. And we've done a lot of very good work for them. So if anybody is hesitant, we've got a lot of folks that we can refer them to if they would like to speak to somebody and kind of get some feedback on how we work and what we've done for them. So, I would offer that as well. We're not, we're happy and grateful for the work that we've done. And we're happy to share the success stories and let them talk to our clients if they'd like to do that.
Connon, thank you. And I think for all of our participants today, thank you for listening and watching. As we said, we're trying to add value, and if you think this could benefit your practice, it's a no harm, no foul. Give Connon a call or email him. He'll talk to you, and within a few minutes, whether or not there's a fit, and kind of take it to the next level. There's no commitment early on. It's just a matter of, gosh, this might be able to be helpful. So
well, it really is no harm, no foul, because we are on the practice finance consulting side, we're performance based. We don't take review fees. We don't take monthly retainers or anything of that nature. We don't expect to be compensated unless we come through and do for you what we're trying to do. So honestly, if someone comes to us and there's just really no solution for them, we walk away and part ways, and nobody owes anybody anything.
That's pretty rare in today's world, but I think that's a tremendous way to do business, Connon. So kudos to you. Thank you for taking the time to be here and to educate all of our listeners. We are grateful to have a wonderful partner like you, and we wish everybody all the best, and we'll talk to you on the other side. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate your partnership as well. Thank you so much.